Hey, and welcome to Better Utah Broadcast. My name is Katie Matheson. I am the Communications Director here at Alliance for a Better Utah. Today we have Chase.
Hi.
Thomas, who is our Policy and Advocacy Council, and Lauren Simpson.
Hi.
Who is our Policy and Advocacy Fellow. So Lauren
You sound much more happy to be here than I am.
Would you want to try it again?
No.
Oh, okay. Lauren is fairly new to us, right? So Lauren joined us the last week of May. No. What month are we in? The last week of March.
First week of March.
She joined us in a month that starts with M, and which was the last week of the legislative session. That's where I was going with this. Yes. And if you notice, we are not in our usual haunt. We are back up at the Capitol. Dun, dun, dun. Why are we back up at the Capitol?
So today is a veto override session, which is going to be starting in about half an hour. Governor Herbert vetoed, I think, like 4 bills, and the legislature is coming back to override 2 of those vetoes, which means that they have to get like a 2/3 majority vote and saying, no, we actually do want this to become law.
So it's like the perpetual ping pong of a bill continues on its ping pong course.
Especially because both of these bills sort of started like a year ago. When the governor and the legislature were fighting over the special election to replace Chaffetz. And so these issues have been going back and forth between the governor and the legislature during the session. They passed bills, went to the governor, he vetoed, and now they're going to put it into law anyways.
Oh, wow. Very intense. Who said local politics wasn't fun? There's a lot of drama.
No, I'm kidding. It is fun.
All right, so just remember, we're going to have this on Better Utah Broadcast. We're going to have lots of Utah movers and shakers on the show. So look at us, our movers and shakers here.
Hi.
Be sure to click Get Reminders so that you know when we're going to go live, and Facebook will alert you as to our next live video.
I forgot something else that happened today. Well, another reason why we were here.
Yeah?
They also had the Legislative Management Committee meet, which they set the schedule for interim session. Which starts next month, but today they set all the study items for like what they're going to be studying during interim session. So they're going to be talking about a whole bunch of random things, but it's like a huge list of 100 topics. Has medical marijuana, edibles as a specific subject in there. Yeah, because apparently under law they would be considered adulterated foods right now that could be confiscated and destroyed.
Okay.
So they have to solve that. There's redistricting. They're going to be looking at coal, the future of coal, and other electric generation. So yeah, a bunch of different stuff. Oh yeah, a bunch of gun violence stuff too. School safety, background checks, different things.
Right. So what's your name, Chase?
Hey.
Do you want to plug your blog post that you just wrote about the special sessions?
Yeah, so if you go on to betterutah.org, there is a page or a blog post that I wrote about the different types of sessions that happen after the general session. So you think that the legislature is going to go away, we don't have to deal with them after 45 days, but no, they come back.
It's like the cat. The cat came back.
Yeah, it's like 9 lives, and it happens throughout the entire year until they come back to life completely. So, yeah.
Cool. All right. So we're going to start off today a little bit different because we're talking about something that is, not that exciting, but there are some very exciting things happening in the world. So it's a new segment called Is This Real Life? And it is in honor, of course, of, what is his name? Dave. Young Dave goes to the dentist, and the YouTube video where the kid had a tooth extraction or something. And
You said Dave. I thought you were talking about Dave Bateman.
Yeah, me too.
Not in honor of Dave Bateman.
Dave Bateman goes to the
Although
dentist.
if you have suggestions, dear listener and watcher, for Dave Bateman segments, we would love to hear them, and maybe we'll have a Dave Bateman segment. In any case, so.
We should have a live version of our drinking game during one of his videos.
We'll talk about that later. All right, so the rules are I'm going to read a headline, and you have to, no cheating, you have to determine whether it is real or fake. Okay?
Okay.
No. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff that happens in Utah, but not enough to play this game. So this is
We're too well
wherever.
informed. They had to go national.
Yeah, you're also too well informed. You would know. All right, so the first one is hundreds of nuns trained in Kung Fu are biking the Himalayas to oppose human trafficking. Real or fake? Chase says real.
No. Fake.
Lauren says fake.
Yeah.
It's real.
Who is training these nuns?
I don't know. I'm going to put the links to all of these in the comments so you can go through and read them afterwards. All right. So Chase has 1, Lauren 0.
What a time to be alive.
Next one. Very angry badger seizes part of 500-year-old Scottish castle. Real or fake? Chase
Fake.
says fake. Lauren says fake. It's real. Yep. Go look at the comments. It's fantastic.
Wait, what happened? How did he seize
An
it?
angry badger got into a castle and holed up there, and no humans were allowed to go in there because he was very, I mean, they're carnivores, very aggressive. And so they had to like block off a part of the castle to keep people from him until they could get him out with
It's a
cat
YouTube
food.
video that nobody wants to know. Have you ever seen the Badger song?
Nope.
Oh, that'll also go in the comments.
We do very important and serious things here. All right, next one. Racist meme shows up on Utah online ad for firewood. True or false? Or
True.
real or fake?
Real.
It's real. Unfortunately.
These are all real, aren't they?
Hold on. So there was a gentleman, KUTV did this story. There was a gentleman who posted an ad for firewood, and as is regularly happens now in Utah, he accidentally linked the wrong image, and it was a very racist image on this ad. And over 100 people saw the ad before it was reported. And KUTV, there's this little quote. It said, "We spoke with the man who placed the ad. He said the meme was his, but that he never intended to post the picture. He says the meme was sent to him by a friend, and he claims he is not a racist." So this is the embodiment of perpetuation of racism. Just
Accidental images going to happen all over this year. Like there's the Utah State Bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. We're at about one a month now these days.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, all right. So, I don't know. What's the score right now?
I don't know.
I don't know. Okay. Next one. Sexual harassment charges dropped after plaintiff loses memory. Real or fake?
Real.
That doesn't seem funny enough to be fake, so I'll say that is also real.
It's fake.
Oh, really?
All right. Next one. Couple more. Man who claimed boss dubbed Mr. Stinky would lift his bum and fart on him loses $1.8 million case.
Real.
Yeah, that's got to be real.
It's real. Australia.
You guys don't have the creativity to think up something like that. Now I realize that the boring, like not boring one, but it's not making you laugh. Those are the fake ones.
All right, next one. Snail Ballet. 176 slow dancers await their moment in the slime light.
Real.
Oh, I hope that's real.
It's real. From France, the quote is, "Raised to be sautéed in garlic butter, but freed by French vegetarian art anarchists, meet the unlikely stars of a mindful music performance." It's a 6-hour performance of snails doing ballet.
Oh, bless artists.
Yes. I'm a musician, so we can say that. Florida man found in contempt for bringing goat to court.
Fake.
Real.
It's fake.
Hey.
But when you have Florida on there, you never know, right?
Yeah, but then I also thought it might be fake because the goat sensation with like goat yoga and everything that's happening right now.
But that's...
Have
yeah,
you heard of
I
that?
guess. Yeah.
Okay.
We should do goat yoga in the office.
No.
Okay.
I
State
don't even
official.
do real yoga.
That's true. State official receives backlash after spending $2,000 in taxpayer money on fantasy football.
Fake.
Wait, what was it?
State official receives backlash after spending $2,000 in taxpayer money on fantasy football.
Yeah, I believe that's real.
That's fake.
Oh, good.
But it's believable, right?
Katie didn't laugh before she read it.
Totally going to give you... Next, last one. Pet raccoon stoned off too much weed.
This is real.
Can't even read it. Brought to Indianapolis firehouse. Confusion ensues.
Yes, but how?
So that's real. There was a couple whose pet raccoon had been stoned off of too much something. They brought it to the firehouse and said, "We didn't know what to do." I encourage every single one of you, if you do nothing else today, read this article that I will put in the comments. Every bit of it is just magical.
It'll be in the comments after the show.
That's right. Comments after the show. All right. So now let's get to the, serious stuff.
I feel so much more informed now than I was. Yeah.
Who knew that snail ballet existed?
Who knew?
All right. So First segment. Let's talk about tax, baby. Tax day.
Sorry.
Tax day was yesterday and also kind of today. Why is today also tax day?
Chase?
IRS screwed up again.
What happened?
Everyone's favorite organization, the Internal Revenue Service, their website went down yesterday for a few hours when everybody, well, basically everyone in the country, because nobody does their taxes ahead of time, went onto the website to do their direct deposit stuff, and it crashed. And so they're like, oops, our bad, and gave everyone else an extra day to file their taxes.
Oh, excellent.
Another PSA, if for filing your Utah tax return, Utah gives an automatic extension. So you have 6 months. So if you're a little bit late on your state tax returns, it's okay.
They've kept that incredibly
so why
quiet.
don't they just put their tax day in like October?
Well, I think because they know that people like me are going to be late no matter when that day is.
All right. So yesterday was quite exciting on social media. Our federal delegation was incredibly excited about this being the last tax day that you would have to file under the old tax code. Did you guys happen to see Senator Hatch shredding old tax code?
No.
It's a great video. You should go watch it. It's quite funny. Shout out to his social media, whoever does that.
Oh, yeah, he was also upset today that the Hill got rid of their hottest 50 in D.C. list because he has been trying to get on it forever.
Oh, well, maybe we'll do an honorary one. All right, so let's talk about the nitty-gritty. Let's talk about, so there was an article from April 9th in the Tribune talking about the new federal tax code and how it's going to impact Utahns, and a particular subset of Utahns, right, which is large families. And of course, we know Utah is one of the states with some of the largest families in the nation. So what exactly is going on, and how has this kind of interacted with our state tax code? Chase, can you give us any
I'm going to have you
insight
talk
into
about
that?
first about the federal. Or are you wanting me to talk about first about state?
That's
Okay,
talk
the
about
way you made
state.
it framed. Okay.
Sorry.
So, yeah, tax code in D.C. When it came here to the legislative session, which started about a month after the tax law was passed, they were like, well, we want to make changes to make sure it's revenue neutral. So that basically everyone in Utah would be paying exactly the same in state taxes because our tax system is based off of the federal tax code. And so they did this in various ways. They lowered the tax rate, the income tax rate by a tiny amount to capture that extra money that they would be getting. And they did a bunch of stuff with corporate taxes, blah, 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 all this stuff I don't understand. But apparently there was a bill sponsored by Representative Quinn that would have created a taxpayer credit type thing, something for the tax credits that the federal tax code got rid of this time. It didn't go anywhere because they wanted to have all the tax law in one bill, but they forgot to add in this thing. And so the tax credit for the child tax credit, and then also there's an extra one that is for handicapped children that you can claim as a credit. Those aren't being reflected in Utah taxes anymore. And so families with, I think it's over 2 children, so 3 and above children, they're going to be paying more in their taxes because they didn't address this missing tax credit. Which, like you said, here in Utah, we have very large families. And so some families are not going to be very happy with their Utah tax bill next year.
Yeah. So that's going to be pretty intense. Also, speaking of just federally, so the other day, yesterday, we posted information about how with this federal tax bill that went through, the individual mandate was repealed with the tax bill, right? And so what's happening is there's a projection now that the uninsured rate will in fact go right back up. So we had dipped down with the ACA, and now we're heading back up. So that's just a FYI if you missed that. I know tax legislation in general is very confusing. It can kind of be dense. Tax legislation is even more confusing and can be quite
impossible.
dense. It's impossible. Nobody actually knows what's in that bill. So yes, in fact, so the ACA was not repealed. Obamacare was not repealed. So let's get that straight. But the individual mandate in which was a part of the ACA, was repealed. So there's a lot of questions as to how that's going to impact a lot of families, frankly, how it's going to impact insurance in general.
Do you know if that impacts it for this year? Is it only starting with 2018 taxes?
I'm not sure.
Oh, I don't know. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
Maybe
So-
I could just get rid of my health insurance. Kidding.
Bad joke. And then what kind of, Chase, review for us the tax legislation that was passed this past legislative session, just like in sum.
Tax legislation?
So our income taxes in Utah,
Yeah, they went down by
Right.
a little bit, like I
Right.
said. I mean, I don't know all the particulars. I just know that so it's a little bit lopsided. For single people, for those who are just claiming themselves, and then with like 1 or 2 children, your taxes are going to go down, both federally and state. For those with like more than 2 children, your federal taxes are going to go down, but your state taxes will go up. And so for a lot of people, it'll actually end up being like cancel each other out, and so you'll be paying pretty much the same, just to different people. But for a lot of people, it'll actually go up by a few $100s.
okay.
I don't know all the particulars that go into how that all happens, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Now, the thing that I'm looking most forward to after this tax bill is, of course, being able to file my taxes on a postcard, because that's what we were promised, right?
Yeah.
Is that still happening?
I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, is that happening?
No.
Oh. So that big promise of making it simpler isn't working out?
Yeah, no, I wish we could go to what some countries do, to where you don't even have to file the postcard. It's basically them sending you your tax return, and then you just do a checkbox and sign it saying that they did it correctly. And
Because
then
they
you just
already
send it
have all
back
the
in.
information, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when I get paid from Alliance for a Better Utah, they send me my withholding stuff or whatever, but they also send the exact same thing to the IRS, so they already have all of my income information. It's for people who are like self-employed or do random jobs. They might have a more difficult time doing their tax returns, but most people in this country, it should be just as simple as checking the box. Yeah, you already have my information correct.
Oh, that's very interesting. All right. Okay, so let's move on from taxes. Phew. And let's talk about the CBO announcement recently. So that's Lauren.
Sure.
So first of all, what is the CBO?
The Congressional Budget Office.
All right. So we actually heard a lot about the CBO. Basically, the CBO will tell us kind of like the financial impact of bills, right?
Yeah, so they do budget reports, and then last week they put out their report about assessing the tax bill and what the impacts of that are going to be. So the CBO determined that by 2020, the federal budget deficit will surpass 1 million.
Trillion?
1 trillion.
Like 1 million?
No, not 1 million, if only. Yeah, 1 trillion.
Okay.
Well, there's the public budget deficit, which is a lot more than 1 trillion. The federal budget deficit, the way I understand it, that's like just the federal government spending. Mm-hmm. Oh.
Okay. And
Anything you want to add?
So that's like the deficit is basically how much the government is overspending than what they're taking in, right?
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's us going in debt every single year by
Which,
that
yeah,
amount.
it's different from the debt. Right.
Yeah.
And those two things are confused quite often.
Yes.
Right. Right. So
Yeah. When we talk about a federal deficit, that's just the federal government, the money they take in from taxes or whatever, they are spending more than they are taking in.
right. So now we've had $1 trillion deficits in the past, right? Like as
have.
recently as like this last administration, right?
Right. So from 2009 to 2012, the U.S. government actually was running $1 trillion deficits every year. However, the reason for that was because we were in a global recession. And in times of financial crisis, it's actually really helpful that's when you need to run high deficits in order to boost economic spending and get you back on track.
Which is why a balanced budget amendment would be horrible.
Oh, hey, good lead-in.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
But the point is that while deficits can be really helpful when you're really hurting and really need an extra economic stimulus, in times when, growth is stable, everybody's doing okay, that's when it's really irresponsible to run a very high deficit, like never balancing a budget. But this would lock them in so that even if they really needed to
In times of financial
run a deficit,
hardship.
exactly. For example, like World War II is I think the last time that the U.S. has been running deficits this high, or like the projections are going to be comparable to World War II, which was in a time when the U.S. really needed to run deficits.
So coming out of the Depression, Great Depression, then also going into a huge world war. And so it made sense then. During the recession a few years ago, it also made sense then because we had to get our economy back up and running.
So what happens if you had, clearly we don't necessarily know the exactly what it would look like, but what would happen if we did pass a balanced budget amendment and then we did go into another massive war, or there was a massive recession or even depression? What happens? Like, what do we do in
Well,
that
that's what
instance?
I'm not sure the particulars. I think there is a way that they're able to override the provision if they have like a 3/5 majority vote in favor of a certain spending. I can't remember what it exactly was.
And if we didn't do that, if Congress couldn't get its act together, which wouldn't be a surprise, then you would
we'd
have
still
people,
be...
you would probably have people cut off of certain programs, right?
Yeah, and you can already see that happening right now with the situation we're in. They went and passed huge tax cuts, a huge increase in spending, and now they're like, oh wait, what did we do? This is such a surprise. Hey, we have to cut entitlements. Well, I knew this was coming.
Chase, the great financial sage.
But you can already see that they're trying to cut off people from certain programs because all of a sudden they found their moral compass again.
So do we still need to be on the lookout, do you think? We didn't really talk about this, but do you think we still need to be on the lookout for entitlement reforms now that Paul Ryan has said that he's not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you can still see certain factions, especially in conservative groups, lobbyists, that are pushing for entitlement reform to happen before the midterm elections because there's no idea what's going to happen in Congress.
So just to clarify, if you missed it, Paul Ryan, who is the Speaker of the House right now, has said that he is going to resign. Nor not resign. He's not running for re-election. So this is the end of his term at the end of this year. And so
Bye.
Bye, Felicia. So what this means is, Paul Ryan has been for a long time, well, recently the leader of the Republican Party, and he has really been pushing for tax cuts and entitlement reform, right? So, like, pipe dream, like you said, since he was in college. What's the quote? What did he say? Since he was doing keg stands in college?
Yeah, since he was, like, at keg parties in college that he and his buddies were just dreaming of reforming.
Entitlement reform.
Yeah,
I'd
Medicaid.
be thinking about if I was doing a keg stand.
Right. We definitely had different college
Like,
experiences.
what kind of a frat boy dream is that?
Yeah.
Really? That was your biggest dream?
Yeah.
To, like, kick poor people off food stamps and Medicaid? Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable. All right. Anything else before we wrap up? Anything you're just burning to tell us about tax reform or the CBO announcement?
For me, it would be holding our legislators, our congressional delegation accountable for these votes. They all voted for the tax cut bill, every single one of them. Even Mike Lee, who was like, I'm not going to vote for this, he eventually voted for it. It was only Senator Hatch who voted for the spending bill. But you can still hold them accountable for it because they shouldn't have done a $1 trillion tax cut if they weren't going to be able to pass a good spending bill. So we need to hold them accountable for putting us sort of in this situation, especially when they put themselves up as these morally superior fiscal conservatives. This isn't being fiscally conservative. So let's hold them to it.
Another thing to note on the budget, on the balanced budget amendment that Chase was referencing earlier, that didn't pass the House. It did not make it into law. But all 4 of Utah's congressional representatives voted for it. So Rob Bishop, Chris Stewart, Mia Lev, and John Curtis all voted for that amendment. And John Curtis tweeted about how disappointed he was it didn't pass. But he, like all the rest of them, voted for the tax cut. And there are 2 parts to this. I mean, the tax cut is going to be certainly part of the deficit, but also, it matters that, the spending bill that neither Republicans or Democrats were willing to make a lot of concessions. And so instead of making tough choices, basically they just funded everything, gave a ton of money to the military and to, defense programs. And
The wall.
so
That wasn't in the spending bill, but it's been in previous bills.
there was some money given to immigration and to parts of the wall. It was pretty specific. It's not going to be like the dream wall that Trump
No.
always talks about. Right, but there is money going toward fencing, in certain sections.
And I'd also say that this also comes without all of the grand vision that they said would come from the tax cut bill. They said like everyone's pay is going to go up and everyone's going to get bonuses, and you heard them talking about certain companies that happened to afterwards. But there's been studies done, and only 1 in 20 American workers has actually seen a direct benefit come from the tax cut bill. So that's 19 out of every 20 Americans saw no effect from this
Whatsoever.
bill. Mostly it's been stock buybacks and shareholder stuff to benefit shareholders. So this really was a boon for the corporations, for the wealthy, rather than for the ordinary Americans.
Okay.
I know we're almost out of time, but one more thing on this. So we do. So there was a Forbes article analyzing the impacts of the tax bill. And according to Forbes, the groups hit hardest by that tax bill. The people who are going to be providing a reduction to federal deficits are going to be the poorest people in America. By 2027, everyone making less than $75,000 a year is going to be providing a net savings to the government, whether that's through higher taxes or reducing the amount the government spends on services or both. So the people at the bottom, who have it the hardest in society are the ones who are going to be shouldered with this burden of getting the federal government back on track, which is not how it should be.
So they heard the plight of the working American, and then they screwed the plight of the working American.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, okay. So to be clear, so just in sum, we have 6 members of our federal delegation who call themselves fiscal conservatives, and they all voted for a tax bill that is increasing our deficit. And that is a massive source of frustration, probably for me, probably for you guys, and probably for a lot of people in Utah, especially members of Utah, it's a society, people in Utah who have large families. So that's a great summation of basically this conversation. All right. So remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Better Utah. Subscribe to our emails to get updates. Join us next week at 12:30, and Lauren will be taking over the hosting duties for next week. Woohoo! Woohoo. And remember to click Remind Me to get reminders when we go live. Thanks, guys.
Bye.